John, and welcome to John's Long Box. Today we're doing Sunday comics at the proper time because I'm going to work tomorrow, so I have to get myself on a regular work schedule. I can't believe it was a Saturday night and I went to bed at 10:30. So I gotta get back into the regular grind of things. It was a fun 7 weeks off. I did a lot of fun stuff. I got to break out my War of the Rings board game, a game that's like a it's like an 8 hour game. I got to play it twice, and I will be playing it one more time today at noon. So I have to stop this at you know early enough because that game is a bear to set up. It really is. I bought like a 3D resin printed handmade terrain painted by some lunatic over at Evil Toy Maker. I paid like $200 for all this terrain, and I'm so glad I got to use it because when I first got the terrain, I did a video on it, but I first got the terrain. I set up the game, and I played two games by myself just because I wanted to get the rules down with all the expansions, everything like that. So then once I took a picture of it, put it online. One of my friends like, I want to come over and play that. So he came over and played that. We played twice in a row. The first time I was the Fellowship, I won, and the second time I was Sauron, I won. I'm Joe Biden. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. And then another friend that I met just moving out here, really cool guy named Dave. He came over a few times as a, believe it or not, I have a childhood friend who had a friend who came over, and that friend brought another friend, and then me and him kind of hit it off. We're both board game fanatics, so he's coming over today. That I can't wait. It's a lot of fun making new friends in my new town, my new house, in my board game basement, and life is good. Going back to work tomorrow, can't complain about anything. All right, so here we go. I see I got one viewer. Hello, who's here? Anybody want to just pop in and say hello, just so I know who's here? I see I got one viewer. All right. So I thought I would check out Red Sonja, the she-devil with the sword, to the death. This is the fabulous first issue, but it's not really the first issue. Marvel did I think it was a Marvel feature. Oh, I chased away my one viewer. Oh well, I took I took a shower this week, but anyway, Marvel did I think it was Marvel feature, and I think they went to 9 issues with Red Sonja, and then it was popular enough that they gave it Red Sonja her own comic. Now, what Marvel used to do, which I think was, it's kind of confusing when you're looking for back issues if you're new to the hobby or if you don't know. What Marvel used to do was they would make these titles that were like, for lack of a better term, they were placeholders. It's like a Marvel Premiere or Marvel Spotlight, Marvel Feature, Marvel Superheroes. And what was it was supposed to be just like a tryout book. Put Captain Marvel in Marvel Superhero, see if it sticks. Okay, that's popular. Spin it off to its own comic. Let's put Ghost Rider in Marvel Spotlight, see if it's popular enough, and then we'll go to its own comic. And that's what they did, and it was pretty clever because I read somewhere that it cost money and like some sort of like legal filing papers, stuff like that to make a comic book. So it would save them the cost of doing all this setup stuff. And back in the early days of Marvel, that was a big deal. I know like Fawcett Comics and early Charlton was big on that. Charlton would just change the subject of a comic book like in the third issue with no warning, just to save like the filing fees or whatever with the periodicals department. So there you go. I don't know who they actually file with, but you know what I'm saying. Charlton was a smaller company and they were notoriously chintzy, so that they would do things like that. So anyway, Marvel is not above it, and it's a good idea. Except I remember my older brother, he's not really into comic books, but he likes Ghost Rider. My older brother's a motorcycle guy. He's a Harley guy, and he believe it or not, he was actually the one to get me into comic books. One of my earliest now I'm on a divergent tangent, but that's what Sunday Comics is. It's drinking coffee. Here's my coffee pot. I set up my coffee pot and talk about comic books. So I remember my older brother. One of my earliest comic book memories is walking to 7-Eleven in the snow, and they had a comic spinner rack, and he would buy comics, and we would get Slurpees. Matter of fact, I got to show this. Forgive my reach, but we got this Odin Slurpee cup, 7-Eleven. This isn't the extra one. I bought this for $4 on eBay, but this was the actual Slurpee cup. And I remember we got that. He got Thor, I got Odin, and I didn't know who these people were, and we got Slurpees. So we walked to 7-Eleven, got Slurpee, and then I think I saw Thor and Odin in a comic book, and I was like, "Oh, that's from our cups." I don't remember if he or my mother bought me the comic, but that was it. All from a freaking Slurpee cup started this insane nonsense. So that brother, he was looking for Ghost Rider #1. And I didn't know at the time that it was really Marvel Spotlight #5. So we got Ghost Rider #1, and then a couple of years later, I was like, "That's not their first actual appearance. That's just Ghost Rider #1." And then we had to hunt down. So my brother, believe it or not, he has two full runs of comics. He has Ghost Rider from like, the Bronze Age Ghost Rider, and then he has the Goon, Eric Powell's the Goon. He liked both of those comics, and that's pretty much it as far as comics are that I know about. I know his son has a full run of Walking Dead, my nephew. But anyway, I'm on a tangent. I was talking about something else, but now I don't even remember what the hell I was talking about. But I had a good night last night, comic book related. I used to work in a comic book store. It was called The Incredible Pulp. It was in Baldwin, Long Island. And last night I had a kind of a semi reunion. My two coworkers, my childhood friends, Dan and Mike, and I went to a diner. It was the first time the three of us we got together in September. I had a big barbecue at my house. On September 22nd, or as close to as possible, I always try to have a barbecue. Always. I did it once. And I want to do it again every year because that's Bilbo Baggins and Frodo Baggins' birthday. I want to have a Hobbit barbecue and, make potatoes and sausages and things like that. So that was a lot of fun. But this was the first time that Dan and Mike and I got together. We just sat in a diner and we talked comic books. It was a lot of fun. Haven't done that in God knows how long. And it was just, the three employees. Next time we got to actually get Larry, the owner of the comic book store. And just the four of us just hang out and talk comics. That I can't wait. That'll be fun again. But anyway, I'm talking about Red Sonja. So Red Sonja was in Marvel Feature for a couple of issues. I think it was 9 issues, and then they spun it off to give her own comic. Look at this, beautiful. This is Frank Thorne, and here's a little comic book trivia. This is Frank Thorne. I do not know who this woman is, but I know who that woman is. That is Wendy Pini. Wendy Pini is the creator and artist of ElfQuest. So she was one of the first that I know of cosplay girls who grew up to become a professional. I think she was friends with Frank Thorne, or they met through this. I don't know, but she became one of his lifelong friends and basically model for Red Sonja. This is based on Wendy Pini. You can't tell in that comic, but she has like reddish hair. So here we go. Red Sonja, Fire and Fury in the Age of Conan. So here we go. Look, the Bionic Battle. Colonel Steve Austin versus Maskotron. Or Maskotron. I had this. This was a lot of fun. So I had the Maskotron and I had the Steve Austin. I never got the Oscar Goldberg. I didn't need like Oscar Goldberg. A 12-inch action figure of an administrator, I didn't need that. But this was look at this tracksuit. At Maskotron, he had different faces. So if you had Maskotron, you could pretend it was Oscar Goldman, and you'd snap his faces off, and he would have different masks. His head would pop off. And, it was a fun toy. The Blood of the Unicorn. So we got a Roy Thomas and Clara Noto are the writers. Frank Thorne, art and color. I like Frank Thorne a lot. I don't think I would want him on superhero comics, but on Sword and Sorcery, I think he was excellent. From a plot by Ed Sumner, I don't know who that is, featuring the heroine created by Robert E. Howard. So there you go. Blood of the Unicorn. And we got 1975. Yeah, no, oh, okay. The copyright is 1975. The actual comic was 1977. And this is in remarkable condition. And guess what? I found this comic in a dollar bin in a flea market. There's where I moved, there's a a remarkable number of like retro collectible places. There's one called Time Warp that's down the road, and it's gigantic, and it's just like a flea market of vendors. It's a whole bunch of stores, just a whole bunch of people just bring their stuff. So you could go in there, you could find old toys, you could find 45s, you could find furniture. One place has old tools that I found fascinating, just like you know, tools from the I don't even know when, like whatever, like just obsolete physical hand tools. I don't I found it amazing. Guys selling swords and ninja stars and stuff like that. But so many of them have comics. So I would go through there and just buy comics. And this was like a buck, you know. It was awesome and in near mint condition. And again, I'm not a grader. I don't want to grade. I don't try to grade. I don't pretend to grade. And not that I'm selling comics, but so when I say near mint, I'm just talking like for me, for my purposes, the way it looks, the way it's in excellent condition. But like I said, I'm not a grader. I kind of find that like once that's like a rabbit hole that I don't want to go down. Then you become obsessed with grade and maybe. And I reserve the right to change my mind. When I always say that when I retire, I will sell my comics. Maybe maybe out of necessity, who knows? But what you can't take it with you. So maybe that'll be when I start selling my comics. Maybe then I'll become a grader, or at least like, oh, this is good condition to sell to people. I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do. So the blood of the unicorn, little bit of insane trivia that nobody cares about in my personal life. This comic was the inspiration for uh, I don't quite play Dungeons and Dragons. I know I always say I play Dungeons and Dragons. I used to play Dungeons and Dragons, and then I picked up a game system called Villains and Vigilantes. I still play Villains and Vigilantes, and I like that so much better than Dungeons and Dragons for a million reasons. And I took the Villains and Vigilantes rules and I played Dungeons and Dragons with those rules, and I made up a story. And this was the inspiration, the blood of the unicorn, loosely based on this comic. And it turned out to be like, I'm not even joking, like a 5-year campaign. And I'm so angry because during COVID, my role playing group kind of fell apart, which you can understand. And then once the things got back to normal, I moved during COVID, and all the guys in Queens, they don't have cars. They city people, and like I always joke that I'm in the country. I'm not really in the country. I'm in the suburbs, but they don't have cars. They don't want to come out here, and words were exchanged about them being wussies during COVID. About like, guys, I'm 2 blocks away. You can't just come over and play V&V. 2 years went by, and they're like, no, we're gonna die. The air is terrible. So it fell apart, and we were like 2 or 3 sessions away from actually finishing the like a 5-year campaign. So annoying, so annoying. You know, words were. That's one of the reasons why I moved. I was just like, these people in Queens are insane about COVID. Everybody's walking around outside with masks on, and all the restaurants are closing, and people wouldn't even come over to play board games or play Dungeons and Dragons. Just sitting at home scared. One of my friends still doesn't come out. She's a total basket case. You know, what do you do? I can't. So I moved out here where people are saying, all right, I probably alienated people, but that's the way I feel. So she's going around, look, I just really do like this. And she's seeing like these people about to sacrifice this unicorn, you know, and that, you know, unicorns are special. Unicorns are whole. Look at, you can actually see the terror in its eyes. Like that is really good job there, Frank. Frank's an artist that, I think this is going to sound pretentious, and there's no other way for me to say it without sounding pretentious. But artists really like Frank Thorne, but I don't know if he actually caught on too much with the average comic book fan. But I really like him. But I will admit, he's an acquired taste that I grew to like as an adult. As a kid, I actively avoided his stuff. It just didn't seem like superhero-y to me. But then again, that was my thing as a kid. Superheroes. What is this? Book covers make you? Oh God! Oh wow! This just took me down memory lane. What this is anybody my age. I'm in my early 50s, so anybody my age will remember this. And I went to a Catholic school as a kid. Uh, we had to take our hardcover books and cover them, to protect them. and it was a requirement. You had to cover your books. So normally you take a brown paper bag from the supermarket and you put it and you cut it and match and you tape it and cover up your books. And for some reason, I found that so satisfying. I'm gonna take a sip of coffee. I loved doing that. I loved doing it, and I loved it was like a fresh canvas. And then I would take magic markers and do whatever and just cover and just like I don't want to say graffiti because it was my own property. I hate graffiti. I just find graffiti. It's not your property. You don't get to paint on other people's property. I take private property very seriously. But you take your books and you draw on it. So all my books, they had like, I would put the title like, algebra or whatever, geometry, math, social studies, whatever, and I'd try to letter it like a comic book, and then I would just cover with my own art, like it was a comic book. But these were covers, Marvel pre-made covers that you'd cover your books with. This, man, that is something from a bygone age. I must have seen this ad a million times as a kid, but I guess I didn't pay attention because I would have sent away for this. I would have loved that. And here is another blast from the past. Check this out. So these are Marvel books. Now, I've said this a few times in my videos that Stan Lee was always a little bit embarrassed by comic books. He wanted to become like a legitimate literary figure. Now, in 2023, when everybody's 2000, yeah, when I panicked, I thought I said the wrong date. Nowadays, we take it for granted that that comic books are legitimate and everybody loves comic books. But in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, and even the 80s, comic books were still considered like childish and like worthless. Remember, in the 50s, they had that big scare, the Frederick Wertham and the what do they call it? There was a word for it, but the 10-cent plague. That comic books caused juvenile delinquency and whatever problems with kids, and only stupid people read them, and psychologists were telling people not to read comic books because they satanic and whatever, and a lot of it almost destroyed the comic book industry. It took decades for comics to recover from that. So here's Stan Lee gets hired in the I think he got hired in the 50s right after this. No, he was working and in the 40s, he went to the war and then came back, got his job back. But so here's a guy that worked through all of this, and he said, I saw an interview with him. I saw or read the interview rather, where he said he would go to parties and everybody around him would be like, "I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I build bridges," and he'd be like, "Yeah, I make comic books," and he was embarrassed by it. So one of the things he was always doing was trying to legitimize the art field. You know, it's kind of like a blessing in disguise. He was a little bit embarrassed, so he tried to elevate it. There's a couple of people that I really give accolades for trying to elevate the medium of comic books, and Stan Lee being first and foremost among those people. Another one being Will Eisner, who I think Will Eisner succeeded in making comic books as close to literature as possible. Unfortunately, he's not a household name like Stan Lee. But what Stan did was he just started. I'm gonna make comic books better and better and better, and he really did. Marvel upped the game, changed comic books for the better. But in the 70s, he tried to get comic books by Simon and Schuster, I think was the publisher of these, and get them into actual bookstores. Nowadays you could go to a Barnes and Noble and see graphic novels, but at this time in 1975, no, you didn't. You did not see comic books in bookstores. What you did see was like little collections of like the Sunday Funnies, the Sunday comics, but you didn't see like off the shelves monthly Marvels. So he made a deal, and they got these books put into comic books. So Bring On the Bad Guys. This is a memory album, Strength and Fitness fun book. He also had why can't it? Son of Origins of Marvel Comics, and they were hardcover books. They had the Silver Surfer graphic novel. These were big things to help legitimize the comic book. We take it for granted nowadays, but at the time it was a big deal. And here we go. Look at this glorious artwork. For just look, see here's she's going to go down and like teach these shaman a lesson. She comes marching in with her bikini chains, and they're like, "Oh, look at this girl!" And she just starts whooping ass. Female Conan over here, and she frees the unicorn from the evil machinations and rides the unicorn away. What does she say? Taram's blood, what power! Look at her face. You know, believe it or not, Red Sonja was one of the few sword sorcery comic books that I read, not collected. I just would pick them up and read them every once in a while because it's a hot chick in a metal bikini swinging a sword. What red-blooded normal American boy wouldn't want to check that out? Hide it from your mom. Join the Dinky Starfleet. Um, does anybody remember Space 1999? That was a bad show that I loved. And I remember one of my cousins was like, get mad at me because I said I like Star Trek better than Space 1999. But what do you want me to do? And now that show's been like all but forgotten. But these ships I thought was such a cool design. They made a big toy of them, and I always wanted that toy. I never got it. Free advice to help you get ahead. There you go. The LaSalle Extension University. There you go. So here we got Red Sonja riding the unicorn. And the Legends of the Unicorn, or at least they were back when I was a kid, was they didn't like men, and like only a female virgin could ever like ride a unicorn. So yes, Red Sonja is a virgin. That was the story of Red Sonja was I think she was abused, but I guess she was still a virgin or whatever, and she would never submit to a man unless he could defeat her in combat. I don't know how they're doing this in today's problematic society. I don't know. Anybody read modern Red Sonja? How did they? They changed it. They changed it. I don't know. Like Gail Simone is now writing Red Sonja. She's got to have changed that. There's no way. There's no way. So I don't know. I'd like to know what's going on. Just look at this page. It's a little busy, right? It's a little busy to differentiate. Now, I want to ask anybody, there's nobody here, so there's nobody to ask. But if you see this video later on in the future, do you like this coloring? I love this coloring. I love and I'm not talking about just this particular choices of coloring. I'm talking about like the printing. Like, is this called flats? How do you what do you call this type of color? But this is what I'm used to, and I'm not a colorist. I'm not a printer. I'm just an amateur who likes comics. I was told in a conversation that this old newsprint paper absorbed the ink, and that's why like these colors are a little bit muted, and and the colorists would take that into consideration when they were coloring comic books. And oh wow, look at these t-shirts. I'll finish this conversation after I marvel at these wonderful ads. Look at these belt buckles. Oh my god, how cool would you be? I'd be the coolest little chubby kid in 4th grade if I had this. Poems. All right. And the paper would absorb the ink. So now when I see like omnibuses and trades of newly printed comics, they look too bright. Is that called saturated? Is that the word? I'm not 100% sure, but they just look too bright, and something about it I just don't like. I know it's because I'm old fogey man now, but I just don't like the way they look in these archive edition stuff, and they're beautifully restored, photographed from the original masters if possible, computer enhanced, but the colors just look too bright, and I don't like it. What do you guys think? Yeah, all 0 of you watching. Look at these guys. Now, you see, Frank Thorne was big on this. I'm on a Frank Thorne kick, in case anybody couldn't tell. I've been reading a 1994 the Warren magazines. It's the War magazine had creepy and eerie and blazing combats. Well, it started out as 1984, and it was the science fiction. And I got to say, the first 10 issues were borderline pornography is the only way to describe them. And they got better. The stories, even later on, it was a lot of nudity and boobs and suggestive stories, but at least they became like stories. And one of the characters was Gita, which was pretty much like a Red Sonja, but it was by Frank Thorne. He wrote it and he drew it. And I guess Frank Thorne had a thing for nearly naked, buxom chicks, because Gita looked like Red Sonja, except she's had blonde hair, and she was a female barbarian girl who was an ex prostitute who became worshipped as a goddess and like led these people to do a rebellion. And I kind of liked it, and then it had boobies and it had like sex and adult themes, but it was well drawn and it was I thought it wasn't gratuitous, given that it was written about an ex prostitute who became the goddess of whatever, I the goddess of freedom. I forget what she called herself. It was actually pretty good. I'd like to see that story collected, and just because there was a couple of bad stories in the 1994. Oh, it was originally 1984. It became 1994. They in the letters page they addressed the names change as in these growing times as 1984 gets closer. We wanted to make it more science fiction, so we moved the date. It's all bull. I looked it up. It was a lawsuit. There was another publication called 1984, and they got a cease and desist letter, and they had to change the name. Just drinking coffee with all my many zero viewers. So um, just just going at it. So here we have oh yeah, Marvel feature number 8 was the last issue of the previous Red Sonja. So if you want to be like me and be a complete lunatic and have a complete run, you got to get Marvel feature number 1 to 8, and then Red Sonja to get a full story. So that's what usually when you see, here's the letters page. So the She Devil and the Scribes, pretty clever name title for the. So guys, I don't think I've ever talked about this. So when you write a letter to Marvel Comics, you wrote to Marvel Comics Group, whatever, 575 Madison Avenue, New York City, blah 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 blah, and you would write She Devil with Scribes. So then the person who does the post office would know what editor to send them to. So you actually wrote this on the letter. Otherwise, they would open it up and, they wouldn't know what department to, do you send this to accounting? Do you send this to, whatever, complaints? So you sent it to that particular editor, and that particular editor would read them, and supposedly that particular editor or his assistant would answer them. And yellow would mean that the editor is actually talking. And these are the words of the actual fans. And I always like to check out the names of the fans. I get a kick out of recognizing the names. Sometimes I'm like, oh wow, a few times I was like, that guy lived like around the block from me. And here's like announcements at the bottom. Subscribe comics. I imagine that anybody watching my videos knows all this, but I always like to think that every video is somebody's first video. And my sister, she's she has 5 kids, and every once in a while the kids would dabble into comic books, and she said she hated it because she doesn't know like the nomenclature. She doesn't know the ways to read comic books, and you take it for granted that everybody knows everything. So there you go. So I don't want to take it for granted. We got Conan over here, and this is the slate of Marvel Comics. Amazing. So indulge me. Let's see what did I collect at this time. Amazing Spider-Man, yes. Avengers, yes. Captain America, Captain Marvel, Conan, no. Daredevil, no. Daredevil at this point I wasn't collecting. The Defenders, no, I was not collecting. Doctor Strange, believe it or not, I had a subscription to Doctor Strange at this point. That was just weird. Fantastic Four, of course. I can almost not remember a time that I wasn't collecting the Fantastic Four. Howard the Duck, I wouldn't touch Howard the Duck with a 10-foot pole at this point in my life because funny animals. I took my comic book seriously and to be honest, I don't think Howard the Duck was really meant for kids. And it's funny because it was like kind of a spoof on Donald Duck. It's a funny talking animal, but it was like political and social commentary by a absolute lunatic Steve Gerber, and I don't think little kids would get it. I didn't get it. It was political. It was social. It was you know parody, I stuff that I didn't get as a kid. But it was adult in the best sense, not like gratuitous boobies and things like that. Where was it? How did I? Incredible Hulk? I got the Hulk. Yes. Invaders, I did not collect. For some reason, comic books set in the past bothered me as a kid. I don't. What do you want me to say? I'm a weird kid. Iron Man. Believe it or not, I didn't collect Iron Man until about 2005. In 2005, I bought a collection from somebody, and they had every Iron Man comic in it from Iron Man 1. So I was like, well, I collect Iron Man now. So then I've been buying back issues, and I'm still not caught up, but I have most of the Iron Man up to 2015. But I think I've only read up to like 1980. So I have a lot of Iron Mans that I haven't read yet. I don't know why I didn't collect Iron Man. Marvel Tales. This was a reprint comic, so I didn't get it. A couple of them just showed up in my collection. I told you, like I'd go traveling. You go to drive. My grandparents lived upstate, so we'd be in the car for 4 or 5 hours. My parents would just, here you go, here's some comics, And you couldn't explain to them what I collected, what I didn't collect, so they would just buy comics. So sometimes I would get Marvel Tales, and the other one was I think it's in here. Oh no, Marvel's Greatest Comics. That was a reprint of Fantastic Four. I didn't need to collect that because for the most part I had those. Marvel Team Up. Oh, you better believe I collected that. I love that. We were just talking about that last night. That my two friends that we worked in the comic book store together. How great was the original Marvel Team Up? Like, from one to like I'm gonna call one to like 65, 1 to 70 was just classic comics. Get those. Master of Kung Fu. I tried to collect Master of Kung Fu, but it wasn't. You couldn't find it in my area. I don't know what it was, but I think my explanation for was at the time to get comic books, they would get a distributor. A newsstand distributor would distribute comics. This was before comic book stores. So what you would do is you were 7-Eleven and you'd be like, yeah, I want to sell comic books, and the distributor would drop off a bundle, and whatever didn't sell, you would rip off the covers and send it back, and they would give you a credit. So somebody out there, some bean counter, some accountant would be like, well, in the the Baldwin, Long Island area, Master of Kung Fu doesn't sell, so they would, instead of shipping you 20 issues of Master of Kung Fu, they would give you 2, and then Fantastic Four seems to sell out. They give you more Fantastic Four. So that's how that happened. So I'm assuming. So I guess Master of Kung Fu didn't sell in my area. So same with Power Man, Thor. I always collected Thor. Tomb of Dracula, my parents wouldn't let me get because they saw the advertisement that it was adult horror. So they thought it would be like, dirty or whatever. So I wasn't allowed to collect Tomb of Horror. Crazy stunk. The Marvel humor magazines were terrible. They were just terrible. These classic, I avoided these. I remember my friend Sean would collect these, but I avoided these. These are holes in my collection. These Marvel classics, I do not have any of them. To this day, I don't have any of them, and I still don't have any desire of actually getting them. I'm gonna actually look them up because if they're like Jack Kirby stuff, then I will get them. I'm like obsessed with getting all of Kirby's comics, so I kind of lost track what's going on. It's not. This is not the greatest story in the world. Evil Shaman wants to sacrifice Unicorn. Red Sonja ain't having any of that. Red Sonja goes back to free the Unicorn. She's riding the Unicorn away, and bad guys come back to recapture the Unicorn. There you go. It's ping pong unicorn, and now oh no, they're gonna kill her. They're gonna kill Red Sonja. Look at that. That was the Space 1999 ship. I just liked it because it was a science fiction ship, but it was just so realistic looking. It was so cool. I really liked it. And the ships didn't have like warp drive and stuff like that. They were just like, not too far from what would really happen. So now the Unicorn is like the Unicorn realized that Red Sonja is a friend and protector, so the Unicorn isn't going to let Red Sonja get killed. So look at that face. The Unicorn stabs Mr. Shaman guy. Mr. Shaman guy dies in agony. Everybody realizes that he was bad guy. It's like typical collectivism, typical group psychology. None of these people were actually into what this evil charismatic leader was up to, and now that he's dead, they all realize we didn't even want to do this anyway, so now they're gonna, walk in shame. Typical stuff. We see it today. Political parties. You get caught up in all this nonsense. Collective activity. Nobody's an individual. Here we go. Miss Marvel. There's the original Carol. That's Carol Danvers. Nice, hot shorts. Midriff showing. Yeah, it wasn't the best comic book. Of course, I got it because I'm a lunatic. And again, this is the only one that I forgive. The Hulk is using fruit pies, and fruit pies are disgusting. But Hulk is stupid. Hulk doesn't realize that the devilishness, the horribleness of fruit pies has tricked him, because Hulk is stupid. The green thumb. And now here's Red Sonja saluting the unicorn. No, she's threatening everybody. Get out of here. Look at that face. And her and the unicorn go off to do what it is she does, and then they part ways because status quo has to be reset. She can't have a unicorn for the rest of the series, although that would be pretty cool. The Demon of the Maze. And Spider-Man and Captain America ricochet to freedom. These were, I love this. These were rifles. And you had little cartridges that had like a little plastic Captain America and a little plastic Spider-Man, just as part of the capsule. So they were race cars and bullets at the same time. How American is that? And what you do is you pull it and you push it in like a shotgun shell from the side. So you pull back the lever, you stick in this bullet racer, push it in, and that would chamber it into the air, and then and because that it would put tension on the spring, and then you'd lay down on the ground. So this barrel would be flush against the ground, and it would have like a little, slanted to give it a little bit of momentum. And then you pull the trigger, and you'd shoot this bullet race car and have a race. So your friend would be Captain America, you would be Spider-Man, and you'd set up these targets, and you'd try to get through the target. It was so much fun, but you're laying down in the dirt. But that's what kids did back then. We laid down in dirt. It was fun. My friend Sean had two of them. And look at this. Evel Knievel. Back in the mid-70s, everything was cars, guns, motorcycles, a lot of outdoor stuff. Comic books were for dirty kids who they weren't outside rolling around in dirt and fist fighting and playing with guns, but there was time for everything. We didn't have as many fat kids back then. I always say that I was a big fat kid. I wish I was as fat as I thought I was in high school. I look at pictures of myself in high school. I'm like, geez, I wasn't even fat. I was, but at the time, everybody was skinny because everybody's running around outside. So here you go. This is Red Sonja, the She-Devil with a Sword, the first fabulous issue by Frank Thorne. Two very big reasons to check out this comic book. Well, there you go. I'm doing coffee and comics, and nobody showed up. I had somebody peeking in every once in a while, opening the door, like, whoa, this guy's a nerd, and leaving. So I'll close it out now. 38 minutes of talking. And I enjoy the interaction with people, but it is Sunday morning. It's for those of you who are seeing this later, this is Sunday the 29th at 10:49 a.m. This is what I want to do. I want to wake up, come downstairs, make some coffee, talk about comic books with people, simulate the way it was when I was a kid, when my dad would get the Sunday paper, and we would have breakfast. He would read the paper, and he would hand me the Sunday comics, and I would just sit there and read the comics and whatever. It was a fun, pleasant thing. Trying to recapture that with other people who are interested in comics, talking about stuff. But I did it for 2 weeks, and I would get a couple of people, and then things went a little bit crazy. As far as I was out of work for a couple of weeks. In my job, you get like up to 8 weeks, sometimes 12 weeks if the year is bad. I'm a construction worker, and you get time off. And you could pick some time, and sometimes you would just assign time. This was a combination. I picked some time off, and then they extended the time that I picked, which ain't bothering me in the slightest. I'm enjoying my time off to the point now I'm like, oh man, I'm going back to work tomorrow, and I'm dreading it a little bit. So because of that, my sleep schedule got wacky, and then a few times I scheduled stuff early in the morning, and I would do it later on. So I don't know. Let me know later. I know nobody's here, so if you see this make a comment. Would you like to do Sunday comics later on, like in the evening on a Sunday, or would you like to do Sunday comics around this time? I'm going to shoot between 9 and 10 to do Sunday comics. Okay, so thanks a lot, everybody. I'm going to close this out. Comment, don't comment, whatever you want. It's supposed to be chill. All right, I'll see you guys with another video. I'll do a video tomorrow. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye. How do I turn this off?